Welcome, Jamie, to my podcast. I have to tell everybody why you in this context of everything I do. No, it's not about fashion. No, it's not about skin products.
Although I am very fashionable,
very
and I hope I have
fashionable, and
nice
you have
skin.
skin.
Good.
I discovered Jamie listening to a podcast, and it's the Joe Rogan podcast, and I'm a big fan. And I'm listening to this guy who is just like, what? Everything you were saying. I was like, yes, I love this guy. I have to meet him. And so I sought out and trying to find a way to meet you. And then we met. And it was like, okay, this is a soul thing.
Yeah, it was.
This guy is really amazing. I am so connected to everything he's saying. I love what he's about. And that's how we sort of hooked up.
Yeah, but if I can add a little bit to that story, when I got the message from you, and it was from Norma Kamali, I was like, wow, Norma Kamali, because you have this mythic status in my family. Because, and I've told you the story, my mother, this is before I was born, was in New York City, and she went to the Norma Kamali showroom, and you put her in this beautiful purple dress, and you tied it up.
Sleeping bag.
Sleeping bag. And then she came back to Kansas City, and my mother is very beautiful, but she's 5'2", and she put the thing on, and she didn't know how to tie it, and it became this big thing. And for literally decades, we've been having these two stories. One, Norma Kamali is my favorite designer, and we had this big purple sleeping bag thing, and when my mother stopped using it for fashion, it became part of everybody's Halloween costume for years in Kansas City. So I was thrilled to hear from you.
I'm happy, timeless, in whatever form is good for me. So I'm happy about that. So we talked about the future, and I have a great interest in it. You're in a whole other level of what the future is about, and so that's a conversation. But we had another conversation recently, and I was talking about my campaign for Aging with Power, and that is a discussion I would really love to dig into today. Sure. And so maybe you can give us a little introduction to how you got on that topic, what you've been doing.
Sure. Well, first, let me say what a pleasure it is for me to be here with you. And second, how much I support your mission. Because one of the things that we all, I think, know and should be celebrating is that life isn't just a thing where you're kind of young and then you're done.
Right.
It's this wonderful series of mysteries and chapters and changes. And at every stage of our life, there's something that you used to be able to do. Maybe you can't do it as well as you once did. But there are new things that you can learn, and there are things that you do better.
Yeah.
And if we don't see ourselves as a combination of all of these things, and we just see life as this kind of like you go up, then you hit your peak, and then you go down. It's like, it's so sad because there's just so much to give. I mean, I was telling you over lunch, I mean, some of my best friends are people in their 80s, and I just love these people because there's like so much life, so much wisdom, and how fortunate I am to have friends who have that. And I hope that I'm that way when I'm at that age. And so I certainly feel that as a human being, but I also live in the world of thinking about revolutionary science and what revolutionary science is going to mean for all of us, and how we think about just how biology works, how we treat disease, how we make babies, the nature of the babies we make, and also how we think about aging. And it's almost like two sides of the same spectrum, though. On one hand, definitely we have to accept aging. And because it's natural, it's part of who we are, and there's a lot of dignity in it. On the other hand, we can't just accept nature. The entire history of our species has in many ways been, at least in part, about our war with nature.
Right.
Like our ancestors living out in the forests, I mean, they repeatedly, most everybody starved to death. You were afraid that the predators were going to eat you. And so when we started fighting against nature, whether it was with fire or agriculture or medicine, Well, we weren't saying, though, everything that nature throws at us is inherently good. It's that nature has some really wonderful things.
Yeah.
We need to live in harmony with nature as best we can. But in the areas where nature is trying to kill us, let's fight back. Like if nature is giving me some kind of disease, I don't want to say, oh, I guess that's natural. It's like, screw that, I'm going to fight back. And so while aging, we have to accept the natural part of aging. I think it's great that we say, well, how can we preserve our youth? And we think about preserving our youth, there's two different ways to think about it. One is about population averages, or when people talk about average lifespans, and those, and that's really important because we need to recognize that we're all humans. And so if my life expectancy is, let's say, 90 according to actuarial tables, but there's somebody else, which is the case in New York, who's my own age, and their average life expectancy based on their socioeconomic status and demographics is 50 or 60, well, that's harming me because I'm a person, and we need to say, well, for us all to live longer on average so that everyone's potential can be fully realized, we need to make sure that everybody has access. But then there's the individual question, because I hope that I have a lot to contribute in this world, and I want to do it as long as I can with as much positive energy as I can. And so there's a lot of work that's being done trying to understand, well, how do we do that? And kind of the level one stuff is that everybody needs to do the things that we all intuitively know we should do. It's like there are these places around the world called blue zones where people on average live longer and healthier than in other places. And basically we should do kind of like the things that they do. It's, and everybody knows it. Eat healthy diet, exercise, have a reason for being, live in a community, sleep, all those things, and everybody gets that. And then, though, there are a lot of scientific interventions that people are exploring, and they're not very natural, but they rely on nature. So one is there are a series of drugs that in animal and starting in human models are showing that they have at least the potential to extend healthy human lifespan. And in many ways, what they're doing is mimicking the body's experience of exercise, which is why everybody should be exercising, and of scarcity. So our ancestors went through these funnels. I mean, one about 1.2 million years ago, and then 150,000 years ago, and then 75,000 years ago. These times when most all humans died, whether mostly from starvation. And our ancestors were the ones who survived because you had this funnel. And so why did our ancestors survive? Is that we had, like, on your computer, when you're running low on energy, you go to screensaver mode. So we have a screensaver mode inside of our cells. And so what a lot of these new drugs are, some of them are even old drugs, are doing is basically trying to tell our cells, well, go into preservation mode. Don't use all of your energy, don't use all of your glucose, your sugar, acting like you're a young person growing, just conserve. So there are a bunch of, my guess is within about 10 years, there will be a personalized anti-aging drug that people will take. But then there are a lot of things that I talked about, your body's experience of scarcity. There's some really simple things, and there's a lot of research now about, people call it intermittent fasting. I think that's the wrong word for it. What I call it is timed eating.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah, it's great because you think about it, like, how did our ancestors live? Like, you kind of ate dinner, and you probably didn't want to eat dinner too late because it's kind of hard when it's all dark to like get your dinner together and kind of clean up and whatever. So you kind of ate pretty early. Then you went to bed when it was dark. Then you woke up when it was light, but you didn't open the fridge. You actually had to do something to get it. And so we ended up just didn't eat for a big chunk of the time, and that's how our bodies work. And so that's why this thing, if you have like it's 8 hours is probably the best. Sometimes people go to 9, but if you kind of have your first bite and then your last bite within an 8 or 9 hour window. It's like people's, like the mice where they have on that diet end up being kind of sleek and healthy, and the mice doing everything the same but just eating the same amount of food spread out end up being obese. So there's that. And there's a bunch of different types
but
of
also
interventions.
also, I think it's important to emphasize the quantity of food that we eat now is so extraordinary and unrealistic for the human body to digest. And obviously, quantity doesn't mean quality. So in that period of time, what are you eating? And do you need to eat as much as you think you need to eat? Probably not. And there used to be, I think all of these health magazines or information would have, all you need is a fist size of meat or whatever it is, and half a cup of that. And that measurement sort of has disappeared in the fast food sort of era. And I think really self-regulating quantity makes it so much easier to digest and so much easier to kind of feel light and active, right? It's this weighted down,
it's so
oppressive,
right. And so the people in these blue zones, they all have, you know, we call it a calorie restricted diet, which makes it sound like it's a punishment. But what they're doing is they just have lower calorie intake. I mean, you need a basic level of calories just to survive. But we have these two things. One is we don't have any kind of portion control. And because in many cases the cost of the input, like you go to the movies, the cost for each kernel of popcorn is zero. And so if they can sell you like a tub that's this big, they're going to do it because there's no downside for them. But then the second thing, the reason why this is hard, is that for basically all of our history, all of our evolutionary history, until very, very recently, your biggest fear in life was starvation. And so when there was a moment where you actually had food, you were incentivized. It's like when you see a lion in Africa, in the Serengeti, and they like kill a zebra, they're not thinking, you know, I'm just going to have a small portion control. They think like,
store up.
I've got this zebra now. Who knows what's coming? And so in our brains, our brains are wired to when food is available, just keep going. And then we have all these industries that are incentivized to go along with that. And so it requires like a level of awareness, but it also requires, just as you were saying, like an appreciation and a love of eating, and eating as this sensual experience, because
of quality.
It's like, like, you know, I don't eat potato chips, but if I were to eat a potato chip, and you know, once in a while I have it, like maybe you get a little pleasure with the first one, but when you've eaten like the entire bag, your pleasure has not gone up. You're just kind of.
But the ingredients, so there's obviously between high fructose corn syrup and salt and fats and sweet, it's heroin. And basically you become addicted to that combination. So you can't just have one chip. You have to have them all, and then you feel bad, and you don't feel good about yourself, and you're making yourself sick. So that addictive component to whatever, there's a lot of things that are happening that are creating that kind of production and those ingredients in food, but it's really self-regulating and and awareness to limit the quantity, go for quality, and stay away from anything that you know is bad, because that's going to, you will just get the needle, put the heroin in, and you know what's happening.
And it's hard for people to do that, because people are really stressed and they're working lots of hours and they have kids. And that's why the work that you're doing, Norma, is so important, because there's a massive social infrastructure around doing the wrong thing. I mean, there's the producers, then there's the cost of production. It's so much cheaper to make foods using these high fructose corn syrup and all of this crap. And then there's the marketing. So you're getting advertisements like, you know, drink Coke so you can find love and have a community. You know, all of these things, and you're just being bombarded. And that's why the work that you're doing is so important, because we need to build a community where it doesn't feel like doing all the things that you're describing is some kind of punishment. It should feel like this is a way of embracing life and feeling good and respecting your body, and not just respecting your body, like making yourself more available to yourself, to the people you love, sticking around longer, not having diabetes when you're older. I mean, it's a win-win, but the messaging and the community building around this is really important.
It's so critical. I think, the hope that there is a shot or a pill or something that helps us sort of put the screensaver on is amazing. But before we take any drug to help our cholesterol or do any of that, it's so simple and it's much cheaper to just do the things you have to do. And it's hard at the beginning. It always is. It's always challenging. But the reward is so amazing. I mean, from a self-esteem point of view, from an aging with power point of view, where if you feel better about yourself, you're going to feel better about everything you do and the way you present yourself. And we think of age from a visual, from a vanity point of view. So the idea of being youthful is always the positive. But if we visualize age, not from a point of view about vanity that says youth, but from a healthy, fit person who is 50, who is 60, who is 70. That's a redefinition of those ages. It's not the same. So if I say I'm 74, I'm not this other 74. I'm 74. That's what 74 looks like. And that's what we can do to redefine this age thing that is really not that complicated. So the intermittent fasting, I think, is really something that's not talked about as much. It seems to be certain people in the know, but
now everybody knows.
Hopefully everybody. And so how do you, what are your thoughts about how to make that? If you were, as a futurist, and you were to see this as a campaign of sorts, what would you imagine that to be? Because it is a simple concept.
And I think that for all of these things, if we're telling people you have your life, live some other life, that's like a really hard thing to do. So I would rather have our messaging be that you have your life. There's some really easy changes. That it's not revolution. It's like a few little tweaks. And just try it, and it'll turn out that it's not as hard as it seems. So exercise, people think, well, exercise means I have to go to the gym every morning, and I have to hire a trainer, and it's going to be expensive. And that you certainly can do that. But it may mean just as a start, like I work in an office. My office is on the 7th floor. I'm just going to make a rule, I never take the elevator. Like, that's it. Like, that's one tiny change, but that's enough. If you never take the elevator, you're actually getting a little bit of exercise.
It's great.
And so, like, half of the people in this country get no exercise. I originally come from Kansas City, and literally you could live your entire life with no exercise because you have in your house and you have the garage. You get in the car, you drive to work, you park in your workplace, you take the elevator, you sit all day, get down, come home, and you could have like 500 steps in a day. And so, but I think you can find those things. People are already eating. Just look at what are easy replacements in the thing that you don't need to like go from just fast food to veganism in one step, and I'm certainly not a vegan. But there are a lot of relatively small things. And then again, I don't like to use the word intermittent fasting because it sounds like punishment. It's just basically have a later breakfast and have an earlier dinner. And when you wake up in the morning, don't put processed sugar into your body as the first thing. Give your body like an hour or two to wake up. If you want to go for a walk, like do it in the morning. Don't eat anything before you. It's like and that's why, like, I don't believe in dieting. I don't believe in any of these kinds of radical interventions. What I believe is in habits, and habits that you can just sustain over your life, and just start small and say, well, where would I like to be And how can I move it in little steps? And then community is really important. And that, if you want to do, let's say you want to just go for a walk every night, which is a wonderful way to do. Find a community of friends. Hey, we're going to go for a walk every night at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
And we have a community of 10 people, and not everyone will go every day, but we'd like to get in this habit.
I agree. I think that for me, the idea of a staircase is a gem. Everybody can afford it, and there are stairs everywhere. And if that's all you do, and you can regulate it yourself. You can go up as many flights as you like, as many times as you like. You can do one step at a time, or every other step. You can create this sort of escalation of whatever you like, and it doesn't have to be every day. It doesn't have to be boring. The other thing is, it's so easy to decide that you're just going to flip a switch. You're not going to radically change your life, but if you go into your kitchen and when you're not hungry, and you go through all the cabinets and you look at what's there and you read the ingredients and you say, okay, I know for sure that that's processed, it's not good. And you take it, and I'm a repurposing person. Wouldn't give that to anybody you love, especially.
Give it to your worst enemies.
And you give it to your enemy.
Like, I got Oreos from Costco's.
Take it. And so you get rid of them, and then decide that in your house, you are going to have, instead of what you can have, you're going to have the following thing. So maybe there's many lists, and you find the lists of things that you love, and you have them there. So when you are hungry, you open the door to anything, and something that's good will be there. And when you're hungry, truly, it doesn't matter what's there. You'll eat it because it's there. And if it's Oreo cookies, big mistake. And I think that there are these little tricks, and it's, again, the picking the time. You can pick, it could change from day to day, but it's so easy when you know, I'm going to start eating here and finish eating here. And it's easy to sort of adapt around that.
And we don't need to be zealots about it, because it could be that you're at a wedding and there's a late dinner, and you don't need to say, oh, I'm an early dinner person. It's like, it shouldn't feel like this is, like, as I was saying, it's punishment. And I think that, again, there's this, why I support what you're doing so much, is that people there's all this marketing to eat crap. And then there's marketing to eat crap that is presented as not crap. So like, I have all these people who are like feeding their kids these like Capri Sun juices, which is just sweet, total crap with zero. And then all these people in the sports world, they're eating the Power Bars, which is just a processed crap candy bar. And so it's hard for people to educate. And then, like, pleasure, like, I love eating, as you know. And not everyone who said, well, I used to snack on Oreos, but now I snack on celery sticks. I mean, it's like, you have to find something that's going to give you that same level of happiness. And I think that it's there. And it is a little harder, because it's so easy, to get the industrial pack of Oreos.
There's more bad stuff out there. So I think what happens is, and it happens rather quickly, it's just like exercise. For people who haven't been exercising, in 4 weeks, you see a change, and you crave working out. By 8 weeks, you're in it to win it. Like, you're already there. And so if you miss a day or miss 2 days, that's okay. And then you go back to a routine, because it is so gratifying and satisfying, and you're feeling extremely powerful in your own body. The same thing with food. By finding those things that now, I love to do avocado this way, or I really enjoy my smoothie with these ingredients, or I do a nut seed bread that has no flour and a psyllium husk holding it together. It is so off the charts, bread was always my downfall. Having this, I bake them, I put them in the freezer sliced, and I take out a slice at a time. So you find things that you crave in the way you crave crap, and it's so good, and you don't feel like you want to kill yourself because you just had a bag of potato chips that were just really.
And one of the things that I respect so much about you is that you have these kind of big ideas, and then you make them realizable. In some cases, like with your Walmart line, in a popularly accessible way. And so yes, I mean, you and I, we're in New York, and we have all of these options here, and like we can bake our own artisanal breads, which is awesome. But let's just assume that there's somebody who's listening to this podcast who is maybe in Missouri, where I come from, maybe it's some rural town, and they're working 2 jobs, and they're getting their groceries at Walmart, which we're both connected
and
to.
And Walmart has great food,
and that's
great produce.
So I'm saying is that even for that person, it's not about you have to shop at some Dean and DeLuca in New York. Go to Walmart, and it's about just informed choices. And then when you kind of learn a little bit about this, and you learn the difference for your kids, like of the habits that you instill and their health, and then you think of like the end of your life, like if you exercise around 45 minutes a day, you get nearly 5 years on average of extra healthy life at the end of your life. And that's like 5 years. That's like seeing your grandkids. It's being active. And so, but I think that we need to make it easy and accessible and enjoyable and fun on an everyday level now.
And the bread I was talking about, I have eaten raw for so many years that I don't know how to cook anything really. So this bread is simple, and the ingredients can be found everywhere. And the truth is, it could be commercialized in a way, but making the bread is less expensive, and you do it once a week, and you freeze it. And so you can find a way to have something really special that you put ginger in or whatever it is you like. So I think that there's something to preparing, not every night, because none of us have time for that. And if you have kids and you're a single mom, not going to happen. But this is something you teach your kids how to make. That's how simple it is.
It is,
I mean, there's no flour, there's none of that stuff.
It's so great. I always, and like lentils. I mean, all these things that are cost nothing, that are so nutritious, so easy to make. And I think that's, and coming back to Walmart, like I think they have these kind of prepackaged salads and all of these kinds of things, and that's so in many ways it's about choices. It's about the culture of food and kind of really changing the way we think about the culture of food. I think it's possible because you look at places. I mean, some European countries are ahead of the United States in this. So there are models, and there are models how whole societies can move. But like all movements, they require moving, and that's why these kinds of conversations
and
are so
more
important.
open conversation about it. I mean, there are probably 12 things that everybody should have in their cupboard that can sort of be the ground for anything you make. If you have lemon and olive oil and sea salt, you have the dressing for any vegetable you want to make, anyone. And if you add turmeric to that, another nice spice, and so it's really, and like I said, I'm not a chef, but I love some of these things, and they're so easy to prepare. I think having the conversation about how it affects health, and basically, we talk about health insurance and medical fees for everything, how we change that through a healthy lifestyle. But also, the power of aging is really based on a healthy lifestyle. And then the surprise when all of this new technology comes in, you're just amping up what you've already put some time and effort into doing.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that leads us where I think you're going into this question of meaning. And so that we have all of these things to live a healthy lifestyle. which we want because we want more health, we
Right.
want more energy, we want more life. And then for what? And then so that we can invest in our communities, in the things that give us true joy
Right.
in life. And it becomes ideally a virtuous cycle. That you're kind of joining together in embracing health, embracing life, embracing the chapters of your life and time.
Yeah.
And it really can come together in a beautiful way.
And purpose
Yeah.
is everything,
Yeah.
right? So that's where you're going with this. And I think nobody can live a full life without really understanding their purpose.
Yeah.
And when you know your purpose, the decisions you make every day are focused. You're going in a direction. Your purpose can alter and change,
Right.
but you're still, instead of randomly sort of floating around, and day to day seeing what hits you and how you fend. Having purpose sort of cuts through
Yeah.
a lot, and it makes you push past whatever it is
Yeah.
that's really coming in maybe not the most positive way. And I think understanding and figuring out what purpose is what keeps people aging longer. I mean, we talked about people we know that are
Right.
older, and I see there's a woman that I've interviewed that I met on Instagram, and her name is Tao, and she is 101, and she still teaches yoga. Her purpose is clear. She's amazing.
Yeah.
She still gets dressed up and puts gowns on, and she's living it. So
Yeah.
she hasn't decided that she's too old to put lipstick on,
Right.
or that she's too old to work. She's defied what her body is supposed to be doing now, and she still has her leg up in the air and is doing it. And I look at her and I thank her a million
Yeah.
times, because I see me when I see her. I know I can.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
I'm done. That's me.
Yeah.
And so having a look at what your purpose is and living it to the end. What's your purpose?
Oh, so my purpose is, you talked about me being a futurist, and I feel like since I was a little kid, I have had this kind of weird, whatever the right term is, ability to kind of see around corners. And there's something great about that, and there's something that's frightening about that, because it's great because you can kind of get a sense of where the world is heading. And there's the danger of being a Cassandra, where you kind of see the world, but you can't do anything about it. And so my big mission in life is to help the general public become more prepared for this radical, revolutionary future that's coming so much sooner than people think. I go all around the world talking about the genetics revolution. When you say even the words, the genetics revolution, that sounds like far off sci-fi, and I'm also a sci-fi writer. But when I explain it to people, no, this is going to totally change the way you get healthcare, and your healthcare is going to be personally tailored to your individual biology, and it's going to be great because we're going to be able to really cure a lot of cancers, address a lot of problems. Now we call it fate. Like if some young child dies of a deadly genetic disease, we say, oh, it's a terrible misfortune. But if we had the tools, which we will, to fight a lot of these scourges, we should use it. And that's coming very soon.
Is that AI? Is that
what
is it?
So it's what I talk about is a super convergence of technologies, because for all of these areas, so whether it's genetics or biotech or nanotech, AI, machine learning, quantum computing, it's all part of this one thing where all of these technologies are enabling each other. And that's why the rate of change is increasing so dramatically. And so to understand human biology, I mean, we certainly need to be able to get information. But then we need to make sense of the information. So just our genome. So as you know, the genome is the blueprint for who you at least have the potential to be. And so when you're father's egg, a father's sperm fertilizes your mother's egg, that single cell has the little blueprint, it has the game plan for how you're going to become a person. But we humans with our these little brains that we have, we couldn't understand the complexity of that, these 3 billion base pairs of genetic information. And so we need our machine learning and our AI to start to see these patterns. And because all of this is happening, because every one of these technologies is getting stronger really by the day, that's why for me, I follow a lot of the scientific literature. It's pretty much every day, at least certainly in genetics, but across the board, there's another paper that's released, which if this paper had come out 10 years ago, this person would have won the Nobel Prize.
Really?
And now they can't even get a story in the newspaper.
Really?
Because it's so amazing. Like last year, 2 male mice had their own baby, 100% genetically related.
No.
Yes, 2 female mice had their own 100% genetically related baby. I mean, it's just like the stuff that's happening is just crazy. Life is being essentially built from scratch just for simple bacteria. But this is life. I mean, and it's insane where this is going. And that doesn't mean that we're going to be making humans from scratch anytime soon, but there is a group of people who are starting to plan for how we might do that.
And there is conversation about, do you want to have children? Is this something that the generations or current generations are thinking are as important as previous generations believed was the way? And I really think, especially in our country, less people are committed to the typical expected family unit of mother, father, 3 kids or 2.5 kids.
Well, we just passed the tipping point where there are more people living with partners they're not married to in this country than there are people living with partners who they are married to. And you look at places, I was in Sweden a couple of weeks ago, and there it's like that's the way you do it. Like when you talk about this kind of what we see as the traditional model of marriage, which frankly isn't that traditional. Maybe it's 200 years old. But that's not what they're seeing. And what I'm observing is that at least for this traditional model that people have in their minds of like mother, father, traditional family structure, like we're disaggregating that into its parts. And so maybe there are people who want to be parents and they don't want to be married, and they can do that. Or maybe there are people who want to live with a partner but not formalize it. Maybe there are people who just want to be on their own, but they want to have sexual partners, and maybe it's a different sexual partner every night, and they can do that. And so it's like all these things that there used to be only one way of doing it. Now there are an unlimited number of ways, and so that doesn't mean that everybody should be doing all of those things. It allows us to have a level of mindfulness to say, well, I'm an empowered person, and what would I like? We talked about DNA. How do I see the blueprint of my life? And it requires like a level of honesty with yourself and with the people around you. Because if you're living an alternative lifestyle and you haven't told the people who are in your life, like that can be dangerous. But if you have like a level of awareness and a level of honesty, then it's really a wonderful age of possibility.
And think again, I'm going to go back to aging with power. So many, when I think of women, we talked about this, they go through menopause, and everybody now is thinking it's about menopause, and it is, but it's also, is she aged out of her job? Is she aged out of her marriage? Is she sort of aged out of everything? Well, my belief is no. Go through that transition, because on the other side, there's this other opportunity. So now everything you just said, boom, how exciting. She can have any choice she wants. And that norm is the new norm for what happens at another point in your life. So I think all of these things, I'm not the type of person that's afraid of the future.
Yeah.
There are things to be wary of,
Yeah.
as you well know.
Yeah.
But I think in the general sense of being empowered by controlling the kind of medicine through food you're putting in your body, and the movement and the sleep and all of those things, is you can control that. You have the power to, you're not victim to anything. You're not subjected to what other people are forcing on you. This is something that you have total control over. Having that control and then aging along with that, you are developing a power that only comes with age, and that's feeling good about yourself, feeling good about how you feel, and then the ability, because your mind has evolved too, to contribute so much more is incredible. But then you, of course, come in with your, okay.
Well, let's see what's possible.
But
let me, because I think it's a really great point, is that I think two things are the key to making your wonderful vision possible. The first is people need to internalize that message that you just said, because it's really hard, because there are all these societal messages that are saying, like, you have live your life and you have a peak and then you start declining. And that's why we have like all of these people who feel like, well, I'm done, I don't have a value anymore. But you look at cultures like India, where the elder is like are among the most respected people, and they're part of the family unit, and they have something to offer with the wisdom that they've accrued. And so I think that it's really dangerous. We know that society is giving some very bad messages, like that, you know, at every age you have to get all the plastic surgery, and you have to wear whatever clothes the teenagers are wearing. Like, I don't think you have to do that, but you also have to reject that messaging. Like you were talking about it at lunch, that like this, you have to anti-aging cream. It's not anti-aging cream. It's, if you're cream, I know you have your line of cream that makes you look beautiful for what you
beauty.
are.
Yeah, the authentic self can never, ever be less beautiful than an artificial intention.
Yeah.
And so there are words that are clearly uncomfortable to me right now, and that's anti-aging, anti-wrinkle. Now, I think, and I think that there's something I'm thinking more and more about. There's, when you feel, like if you ask me how old I feel, I will tell you 27.
I think everybody.
Why is it 27? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, and I've spoken to older people too in nursing homes.
I think it's that
27.
when you're young 20s, you're young and you're kind of foolish. When you're kind of late 20s, you're less foolish and you're still kind of
spirited,
young, and you're
spirit,
still young now.
Right?
But I think that there's so I think there's.
I think it's
a sweet
about
spot.
the spirit.
Yeah.
So, having said that, if you look in the mirror and you look sad and sick and pale and not healthy, it makes you feel not well and not positive about yourself. So I do think that taking care of yourself and looking after your skin and doing those things and meditating and doing healthy things to enhance the way you look. And you know, I'm not a facelift person or somebody that is encouraged to have anesthesia when you don't need to. But I do think if there's something that makes you happy, I'm okay.
Yeah.
But the witness protection program is not okay. If you look like somebody else and you're trying to look like Kim Kardashian, well, don't.
And even Kim Kardashian doesn't look like Kim Kardashian because she's had so much.
But she looks at least like a version of herself, and she owns it.
Yeah. And it's actually really, just as an aside, really impressive. I was actually with Kim Kardashian. We were speaking together at a conference in Armenia a few weeks ago. And she really kind of owns her thing, and it's great.
I am totally a big fan.
Yeah.
I think she is her authentic self to the nth degree, and she does it successfully. So whatever that is for you, but when you feel so lost in connecting with self that you have to take on another identity, that is really where you have to stop and go back inside and really look at who you are. Nobody else looks like you, but the healthy version of you is the best one. And then whatever it is. I mean, I dye my hair. I keep thinking, do I want to have gray hair? No, I don't think so. I'm not ready for that yet. But for me right now, that's working.
And I think it's great, and because I think it's really dangerous if we set up these extreme straw men to say, like, well, I'm going to be natural, and that means I'm not going to paint my toenails, I'm not going to cut my hair, I'm going to like wear homespun clothes. I mean, nothing wrong with the people who do that. And so I think it's, for me at least, the message isn't you don't have to go and live in a cave and hunt your own food or whatever to be natural. It's just everyone needs to find a balance that works for them. And there's so much messaging that is like almost encouraging people to lose themselves, to feel badly about being who they are. And certainly, we all push ourselves. We all, on top of the list, have our vanities and things that we do. But I think what you're talking about is just like self-acceptance and self-love. And that's the kind of foundation, not just to looking good, it's the foundation to feeling good, to having healthy relationships, to not feeling disempowered when your body changes or your life changes. And we all then together need to work to change the superstructure around us, because we have this messaging that in this country, which is, it's so sad that old people don't have anything to contribute. I mean, like, I think that these people who retire and are in nursing homes, which are these heartbreaking experiences, or even older people who are playing golf all day, every day, and nothing against golf, but people have so much to contribute.
Yeah, it goes back.
Others.
It goes back to purpose, because I mean, I know my purpose, and I, at one point in my life, I questioned, why am I so worried about a quarter of an inch on that hem, or the way that's fitting, and people are finding cures for cancer, and I really felt so bad. And I thought, what a shallow career I have. What has happened? I thought my life would be more meaningful. And then I just started to listen to what was already happening, and that women were telling me about their experiences in my clothes and how it was transformative for them. It made them feel a certain way, or they had an experience in the clothes, and I thought, I've never thought of it that way. And then I started to realize that there is something that I can do to make the spirit work, but then it even became more important for me when I started, especially opening the Wellness Cafe after 9/11, and seeing that healthy lifestyle could really change the concept of beauty. And that beauty didn't have to be makeup. It didn't have to be what the fashion industry and the beauty industry told us what was beautiful, that it could be something else. And so I realized my purpose at that point had evolved to how to make women feel good about themselves. And so now I'm so sure that that's my purpose, that I have every day, I think about how important it is that I do this power in aging and aging with power, and making it so clear to women that this is nothing. 74 feels so good for me. I've started new companies, done new things. I'm talking to you. I found you. Like there's always a new discovery.
You believe in astrology. The stars brought us together.
Whatever. I mean, but it was because I was curious about you.
Yes. No, but that's exactly right. Like, it was that curiosity. It was that openness, that wanting to learn, that expands and that creates a new set of of possibilities.
Yeah. And I think that the people you and I know, or of any age, including Marty and other people in our lives, they're so incredibly curious that that energy just is the food for life, right? It really is that.
And one thing that you said that I totally agree with was that you recognize that part of your mission is having people feel accepting of themselves and loving themselves, and your wellness, but also your clothing, help that in that process. And one of the things that I say a lot to people, and I really believe, is that we're all part of these interconnected ecosystems. And so everything that you do, you're contributing to somebody else's ecosystem, but you have all of these people who you don't know who are contributing to yours. Like you have like the glasses that you're wearing now. You know, somebody extracted the oil that turned into the plastic. Somebody, dug up the sand that's in the glass. You know, somebody probably in China made the little screw. Somebody was part of shipping these glasses from wherever they were made to here. And so everything that we do, we're connected to all of these people who it's like a little handshake. And we're part of the handshake. And then you have these glasses, and those glasses are helping you see a little better so you can make more perfect clothes. So somebody else is looking beautiful, and they do something else. And it's like, I think that, not sure of your listeners, not everybody is a world famous designer, but everybody is an essential part of some ecosystem. And I think this thing is, especially with aging, people stop seeing that. People say, well, I'm just alone, or I'm not contributing. And there's so much that people can do, and so much that people are already doing that they're not valuing sometimes.
Even it's so simple. You're so right. So even if you have a flower box on your window and people walk by, those flowers are affecting everybody that walks by, or having a neighbor that just can use a hello, or we talked about just touch. I mean, when was the last time somebody touched you in kindness, and actually giving someone a massage, or talking to someone about what their day was like is so simple. And kindness is really so simple, but because we're so distracted by this electricity that's become our reality every day, we're forgetting that that experience is critical, not just for our relationships with other people, but feeding our own soul, of having that connection to how other people feel. I agree with you. I think that network of simple things, changing, we may not be able to, I have a mantra that I created, and one part of it is, I may not be able to change the world, but I can change the world around me. And changing the world around you is so important, because it's the world of people you know and love. And then they then connect that out to other people.
And it's just these little tiny things. Again, same point. It doesn't need to be that every day you kind of leave and go to India and join an ashram. But I know this wonderful woman, Deborah Zake, in San Diego and Mexico. And she's 95, and she lectures at Rancho La Puerta, once a week, which she's the founder of. And it's like she says every morning she wakes up and she sits up, and then she says, she puts her fist in the air and she goes, "Hello, day." Like that's her ritual to start. And just like you talked about, this kind of curiosity that you're never too old to not want to learn, but to need to learn. And to feel that learning, it's like populating your life, and you populate it with people and ideas, and it's all out there. And I think that's the challenge, is that there's a pressure as we get older to have a little bit of tunnel vision and to feel like, well, there's less light. And And I think that it really takes work to open the aperture, to see possibility.
Especially, I think what happens, and this is an observation I've had, that as people age, they become disconnected with newness. Yeah. They are disconnected to new music. They're disconnected to new fashion. Right. They're disconnected to new technology. They're no longer relating to so many things that they become isolated and, well, I can't use a computer and I can't do that, so I'm going to do this. And so they all of a sudden realize they don't fit in the world. Yeah. And I believe, there's a part of me that believes that, okay, maybe it's my time to check out, or not to well, but when you're so disconnected, and I think just like sleep, diet, exercise, curiosity and learning to do something that seems so not what you think you can relate to, all of a sudden puts you back in the game and makes you realize that there's something happening that could actually be mind expanding, and that brings you into life again. And that isolation of just stepping away and stepping away. And the spirit, you know, I know 25-year-olds who have lost spirit or have decided that that's not part of who they are anymore. Many things happen when we have problems and issues and stress. So I'm curious to what your thoughts are about stress. And stress causes illness and aging and everything else. So tell me what you know about that.
So stress is interesting. Stress, anxiety. On one hand, we need to recognize they're essential parts of being human. I'm sure that there were early humans who were totally blissful and didn't feel stress. And they were the first people who got eaten when the lions
the animals
came. Like our ancestors, it was like, you know, the way you survive in all of these hostile environments over millions of years, it's like, what's the worst possible thing that could go wrong? How can I prepare for like all of these? So like that's the way our brains are built. And so, yes, you can seclude yourself in some kind of place and try to live a zero stress life. But even like I'm very close with the Tibetans and have had 5 or 6 private meetings with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and just these guys are incredible.
Who is also a Cancer, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So, anyway, but when I say this to my friend, who's the Prime Minister of the Tibetan exile government, is like when the Tibetans were converted to Buddhism, they had been these incredibly fierce warriors. Yeah. And then they became these wonderful Buddhists with such an incredible message. But then, like these other guys, like the Han Chinese, started saying, oh, this is an opportunity. These guys are pacifist Buddhists. And it really was hard. So like we have to have a level of, we have to have a little bit of fear in life. It's part of what needs to be human. But we can't let that stress and that anxiety and that fear define us. And I think that's the thing. Like that everybody, part of being human is feeling stress. But there are some people for whom that stress becomes defining. And that it's part of our brain chemistry. It's that we have this fight or flight. And when that is going, you're not going to be able to get to this place of openness, of acceptance, of true intimacy, because you're kind of always running. And it took me a long time to realize that the thing that you're running from is not the thing that you're worried about. Most often, I mean, sometimes you should just be worried and run. That's the right thing to do. But most often, at least for our lives, the thing that you're really fighting against is you. And that part of is like accepting self, accepting that there are difficult things in life, and accepting and learning over the course of time, which is why it's wonderful to be older, that you actually have some resilience, that these things that you thought were going to kill you when you were younger as a matter of fact, aren't going to kill you. As a matter of fact, you know, at this stage of my life, with the various things that I've been through, I think like, well, this is pretty bad. But I've seen worse.
Yeah.
And I fought back, and I made it through.
That's that's a huge point, because when you have your first, which is usually around 30, where you have this first life experience that says, let's see how you handle this as an adult.
Yeah.
And it's overwhelming, it's huge, and it really can give you a good shake-up. The more you have, the more you can handle what's happening, because, oh yeah, I know that if I go this way or this way, it's gonna, and so you shorten the whatever it is, and you have a little bit more experience negotiating your way out of it in your own head. And and only age will give you that expertise. Right. There are certain things that only age will give you, and no education of any kind can give you. And that's my, you know, now here, even at work, when I say, listen to me, I'm just telling you to do it this way. I hate to sound like somebody's saying, but it works. Yeah. And I got bitten, burnt, did everything. So to avoid me having to go through that with you right now, could you just take it from me? Yeah. This will be the end.
Well, that's a hard one, because
it's their experience.
It's like they're learning.
However, it's on my dime.
That's true. That is a good
right
point.
Here on my dime. Exactly. On your own. I always say, on your own,
Go do it. That's very funny.
But I do feel having that life experience is extraordinary, and that's what makes you feel so empowered that you can almost see how that will evolve out. And it really is nothing compares to it. And again, if youth is what you're defining as the best older life, you're so on the wrong track. But if you're looking at being healthy, you know, all of the aspects of that, and having this foresight and this knowledge and this intelligence that is not gained in any other way, it's extremely empowering, especially when you use it and you see, oh man, that I'm right, and it's done, and it's easy to pass on. And so passing on the wisdom of age is the responsibility also of age, and making sure that you share stories, as many of them, so that people can take it and sort of blend it into who they are and find their experience. And that's really the joy of aging. And that, you know, I so appreciate you sharing. Of course, I could spend 6 hours here with you, as you know, and we will have to do another one of these. Wonderful. But this was so helpful, and in my reference to aging, I'm always going to make sure everybody listens to this podcast, because you're such an inspiration. And if you haven't read any of Jamie's books, I'm going to put a whole list together. Great. But Hacking Darwin is really just beyond. You are such an inspiration, and I hope everybody gets to know you and follows you the way I do.
Well, you are wonderful, and you're an inspiration for me and my dear mother, who will watch this podcast multiple times, and my entire family knows that you are a truly mythic figure in our family.
How old is your mom?
Are
you allowed to say?
Because we are embracing age, and because my mother has so much beauty and so much wisdom, I hope it's okay, Mom.
It's okay.
Okay, good. To say that my mother is 81. But she looks great, and she's so energetic, and she does ballroom dancing, and she's working full-time as a psychoanalyst.
I love it. Well, there you go. Yeah. I mean, there you go. She's moving. Yeah. She's having fun while she's moving, and she's working. And the dream.
Yeah.
That she's living the dream.
Yes. No, I know.
That's so great.
And that's why it's so important what you're doing, is that there's so much unhealthy messaging. And we need to change that. And it's the first step is messaging ourselves. And then if we have enough people who are messaging along these lines ourselves, we can band together and change the world.
Yeah. Yep, I think so. Love you.
Love you.